is now my pleasure to introduce to you today's speaker. Miss Brenda Tracy, in 1998, was the woman at the center of an explosive gang rape investigation involving 4 Oregon State football players. After 16 years of silence, she revealed her alleged attackers in a bombshell interview. In 2016, Ms. Tracy received the Special Courage Award at the National Crime Victim Service Awards ceremony in Washington, D.C. Ms. Tracy will share with you her gripping story and why she believes that men are the solution to ending sexual violence. This topic does have a tendency to trigger strong emotions in some people, so please feel free at any time to leave if you need to. That's totally fine. And please understand that cadets and anyone here, you're welcome to talk to her after the session or reach her through any of her means of contacting her or anyone here. Helping agencies are always available to cadets that need to speak about topics such as this. So without further ado, it's my privilege to welcome to you Ms. Brenda Tracy.
Thank you, and thank you for coming today. I truly appreciate it, and I'm very happy to be here. My name is Brenda Tracy. I'm here from Portland, Oregon today. I'm Oregon? Anybody? Oh, hey, okay, hi. I am a single mom. I have 2 sons. My boys are grown now. They are, actually, I like when I work with young people, I like to ask in the audience, who here is under the age of 25? And everybody inevitably, yeah, raise your hand. But inevitably with the colleges I work with, everyone raises their hand, and then I go on to tell them that my sons are 24 and 25. So I literally could be your mother. And I want you to think about that because, seriously, as I share my story today, how would you feel if you were? What if you were my son or my daughter and you were sitting on that side and it was your mom up here talking about this story and what she went through? So something to keep in the back of your mind. I'm a registered nurse. I have been for 14 years. I have not been to my job in just about over a year. Since I came forward with my story 3 years ago, I started speaking, and I do this full time now. I'm like a full time, I don't know what you call me, advocate, activist, something. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I am going to share part of my story with you. I have a limited amount of time, so I won't go super deep into it, but it is upsetting for anyone. You don't have to be a survivor to be upset by my story. You could just be a human being with some empathy and compassion. If you need to step out of the room or anything, that's fine. Let's please all be cognizant and aware that there are survivors in the room. There are people who know survivors and have loved ones who are survivors, which this could also be upsetting for. So 1998, I was a young woman. I was in my early 20s. I already actually had my 2 sons. I had my first son when I was 18, and I married his father, and we were married for a few years. That relationship was full of domestic violence, and so I was able to get out of that relationship with my life and my children. And then I started dating a football player from Oregon State University, and my best friend was also dating a football player. So we would travel back and forth to hang out, go to football games, normal stuff, nothing unusual. On this particular night, my friend invited me to go to her boyfriend's apartment and hang out with her, and I said yes. I'd been there before. When we got there, it was him that was there. His brother from California was visiting, and he'd brought a friend from California. The roommate was also a football player at Oregon State. And then another guy showed up, and he was also a football player, and he was best friends with the guy that I was dating at the time. I was unable to get a hold of my boyfriend, and people look at me like, what do you mean you couldn't get a hold of him? Well, we didn't have cell phones back then. So you literally had to call someone's house and leave a voicemail. Some of you probably remember those days. So that was who was at the apartment. And the guys were playing video games and drinking, and I didn't drink. I never drank because I grew up in an alcoholic home. When my children's father would drink, he would beat on me, so I just didn't drink. But on this night, my friends were saying, Brenda, have a drink. Just for once in your life, kind of cut loose and have a drink. It'll be fine, you're safe. You can crash on the couch if you drink too much. Whatever, you're fine. You're just here with your friends. And so I said, okay, and I had a drink. And one of the men made me a drink. It was orange juice and Tanqueray. I had a sip. It was strong, and I didn't like it, so I sent it back, and I asked them to add more orange juice to it. I got my drink back. I drank about 4 ounces of it, literally maybe this much out of my cup. And then probably 20, 30 minutes later, I started to feel kind of flush inside, kind of Like I could feel my cheeks getting hot. And I remember laughing and giggling about like, oh my gosh, I'm already getting drunk. And I thought it was really funny. But another 10 minutes after that, I started to feel really dizzy and was like concerned that I was gonna pass out. And I was sitting on a couch against the wall, and across from me was my best friend and her boyfriend. And I remember looking at him, and I remember he stood up and looked straight at me. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna pass out. And he took my friend's hand and he walked her into the back bedroom of the apartment. And I did pass out. The first time I came to some consciousness, I became immediately aware that I was naked. I was laying on my back on the living room floor, and I couldn't move my arms or my legs. I was being assaulted by all 4 men. I was being raped. I remember feeling like I was trying to yell or scream or say, stop. What are you doing? Why can't I move my arms or my legs? But I don't know that I was able to form any words. And they were laughing. They were high-fiving each other, kind of congratulating each other on their performance as they took turns on me. I was unable to stay conscious, and I passed out. I won't go into all the details of what happened to me that night, but I know from police statements, witness statements, that I was, my attack lasted for about 6 hours. Around the 6-hour mark, they were complaining that I was so dry and so swollen that they couldn't penetrate me anymore. So one of the men said, let's put ice on her. And they did. They put ice on my vagina, and when that didn't help with the swelling and they couldn't rape me anymore, they stopped. And I believe that's probably the only reason my attack stopped. I know that they used an alcohol bottle on me that night. I know that they used a flashlight on me, and I don't know what else they did. I was literally unconscious for almost the entire attack. And I don't want to know what happened that night. I literally pray to God that he will not allow me to access those memories, because what I know is enough. And what I want to say to you right now is that, as a survivor and as a people that look at us, I know that you think like it must get better. Right? Time heals all wounds. It must go away over time. It must dull. It must fade. It must be okay at some point. Because you hear people say to us, it's been a long time ago, you should get over it. You should move on. But this type of trauma isn't one that you get over, and it's not one you're able to move on from in that way. Because I thought that too. And I even thought when I started doing this work and sharing my story, I've shared my story probably 75, 80 times maybe now. And every time I think, this time I'm going to get on stage, and this time I'm going to be strong, and I'm not going to cry. This is going to be the time that I don't cry. This is going to be the time that I share my story with only strength. But every time I end up crying. And I think it's because this type of trauma, it doesn't go away. Like, I can go back into that apartment with you, and I can tell you what happened to me, and I can feel the shame and the disgust and the embarrassment. And I can smell the vomit from when I threw up on myself. So when we say to survivors, get over it, move on, it's been a long time ago, you have to understand we can't. We can learn to live in spite of it. We can learn to put it over here, right? We can learn to find joy and find peace and find healing and find happiness, which I have. But it still lives there. It doesn't dull and it doesn't fade. You can always go back to that moment. And that's something I wish people understood about us. That's something I want you to understand about me. It's hard for me to stand here and cry in front of you. It's embarrassing. It feels shameful. But I also need you to understand what I went through that night so that you can understand what survivors go through and why it's such a big deal for us and why our response to people like me is so important, and how when we don't respond properly, how it further traumatizes us and it further affects our life. and how we will never go back to the person that we were before it happened, because it's impossible. You were never that person again. The next morning, I got up, I found my clothes. I went to the hospital, I got a rape kit done. I went to the police, I reported it. I did everything that I was supposed to do, like a good victim, right? To pursue justice. All 4 men were arrested. It was a media story because they were football players. The first thing my community did was call me a liar. They wanted to know why I was trying to ruin these promising men's football careers. What was in it for me? And we still see this today. Anytime a woman comes forward against an athlete, celebrity, man of power, position, money, who is she and why is she lying? I lost friends, I lost family, people turned on me. The DA said I didn't have a good case, and so I dropped the case. I didn't want to pursue it. The DA said I wouldn't win and I have to go through 4 separate trials. So I dropped the case, and that was a news story. And then this time when I dropped the charges in the news, my community then said, see, we told you she was a liar. If she was really raped, she would prosecute. But nobody came to me to ask me how I was or what happened. I was just Jane Doe. So I tried to move on with my life. For the next 16 years, I went to school. I became a registered nurse. I was a single mom. I took care of my kids, and I tried to heal. But I didn't. I struggled. I tried to forget what happened, but I couldn't. And I dealt with depression, and I dealt with PTSD, and I had a borderline eating disorder, and I was suicidal. Every day, I literally just wanted to die. I felt that those men had ruined me. Who would ever love me? Who would ever respect me? How could I ever talk about this to anyone? How could I ever be in a relationship? How could my children ever respect me? What if my sons, when they were your age, what were they going to do when they found out about their mom? How could they ever respect me, not be ashamed of me, not be embarrassed of me? How could they ever hold their heads up and be proud of their mother once they found out that 4 men ran a train on her? It was hard. In 2014, I decided to come forward with my story. And people today say, Brenda, how did you find the courage to come forward? And I'll tell you that it wasn't courage. It was desperation. In 2014, I just wanted to wake up one day and not want to die. And I thought maybe if I told my story, maybe if I put my name and my face on it, maybe something would change. And that was the only reason I did it. The blessing is that this time my community didn't turn on me. They loved on me. They believed me. Survivors reached out to me. An investigation was done about my story to find out what happened in 1998. And what happened back then was Oregon State University was trying to renovate a football stadium. And they were courting a family for tens of millions of dollars to renovate Parker Stadium. And they couldn't have a rape scandal on their hands. So the DA, who said I didn't have a good case, the DA lied to me. The DA had taped confessions from all 4 men. The police took my rape kit and threw it in the trash. They didn't even test it. They threw all of my evidence away in the garbage 3 years before the 6-year statute of limitations was up to prosecute these men. And the university president told everybody not to talk about me. Everyone, all those people got together and talked about how to make me go away, and I did, and it worked. And 1 year later, they got those tens of millions of dollars from the Reeser family, and they renamed Parker Stadium to Reeser Stadium, and is the football stadium that stands there today at Oregon State. And I have to tell you that I still haven't reconciled that, right? We talk about how life is priceless, but mine is not. My life is worth the amount of that stadium. And I don't say that figuratively, I say that literally. All of these people decided the worth of my life was the cost of that stadium. And every time I see that stadium today, I recognize that it is built off of my back and my pain and my children's pain. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with all of those good people who did nothing and said nothing. And this is the thing, you know, I can rationalize a rapist. I can rationalize the men that did this to me. They're bad people, they hurt people, but I can't rationalize all the people who stood around and did nothing, said nothing, celebrated building a football stadium while I almost killed myself. And do we get to call ourselves good people if in moments of injustice we do nothing? If in moments of injustice do we get to say we're good people if we say nothing and we do nothing? And isn't saying nothing actually saying something? And isn't doing nothing actually doing something? And if we don't take care of each other and we turn the other cheek and we look away, do we get to call ourselves good people? Because I don't think so. When I found out all this information, I went to a lawyer and I said, who can I sue? Because I was angry. And I was told there's nothing I could do. DAs have immunity. They get to take whatever cases they want. There were no laws about rape kits. And I wasn't a student at Oregon State, so none of the federal laws that protect other students protected me. So that was when I became a citizen lobbyist. I've been to 3 sessions in my state over the last 3 years. I've helped pass 7 laws in my state, helped extend the statute of limitations to prosecute rape. I've helped create a rape kit bill to make sure that all rape kits are processed. And I've worked on other bills to help protect survivors in my state. That is something that's really important to me, and I want you to know that I don't have any type of a degree in any type of political science, or I didn't even know how law was actually formed, to tell you the truth. I had 0 clue. I literally just walked into my Capitol one day and I said, this is not okay. I should be able to prosecute these men who raped me. But I couldn't because of the law. Those 4 men will never go to prison for what they did to me, even though they confessed, even though everyone knew that they did it. They will never serve 1 day in jail for what they did to me. And that's wrong. The law failed me. So I changed it. And anyone can do that. You just have to have a passion, and you just have to find a legislator who wants to listen to you. I didn't know how to do it, but I believe in the power of one person and a story. Legislative work is something that's really important to me. I also sit on the NCAA Commission to Combat Sexual Violence, and the other thing I do is I travel the country and I speak. I share my story. I mostly work with men. And the reason I work with men is because I believe that men are not the problem, but men are the solution. We talk a lot about how men are the problem, but we don't talk about how they're the solution. And I'll tell you why I know that men are solution. I'll tell you why I'm so passionate about this. Because I know that if women could stop sexual violence, we would have already done it. I wouldn't be here. Women have been trying to end sexual violence for years. We've been breaking our backs trying to do it, and we can't do it. The other thing that I know for certain is that 98% of all sexual violence is perpetrated by men. This is just the truth. Men are perpetrating these crimes. They're perpetrating these crimes against other men and women and children. But it's 10% of the male population doing this, which means 90% of our guys are good guys that don't do this. 90% of our men are good guys that do not perpetrate these crimes. The problem is that you're silent, right? If you're a 90%er, you're probably thinking, well, why is this my issue? I don't beat women, I don't rape women, like I'm a good guy, like this isn't my problem. But it is. And the reason it's your problem is because if women can't stop it, right? Are we gonna count on the 10% of the men perpetrating these crimes to stop it? They're not gonna do it. So who does that leave? It leaves the 90% of our good guys. You're the answer. You are the solution. I refuse to talk about you as a problem unless I'm also talking about you as the solution. And that's who I focus on. I go out in this country 2.5 to 3 weeks out of every month of the year. I take part of December off. That's it. I'm on the road constantly, engaging men, asking them to have discussions with each other, asking them to hold each other accountable, asking them to identify themselves as the 90%. And I'll tell you, when one man stands up and does the right thing and identifies himself as a 90%, he gives permission to another man to do the same, and another, and another, and another, and another. And that is how you create a culture. That's how you create a movement. That is how we hold, the 90% holds the 10% accountable. The 90% lets the 10% know you are not welcome here on this campus, in this space around me. People on this campus are safe. That's how we do that, and that's what I do, and that is my passion. And my hope is that men and women will align themselves together. This doesn't have to be a divisive issue. It doesn't have to be us against them or anything like that. It can be that we all sit down at the table together with a common cause, because it's a human issue. Men are survivors, children are survivors, women, sexual violence, transgender. People who are transgender, if you're a person of color, if you're disabled, you are far more likely to be sexually assaulted during your lifetime. 1 in 4 little girls will be assaulted or sexually abused before they're 18. 1 in 5 boys before they're 18. All the hazing that goes on, sports, military, whatever, a lot of that is sexual assault. It's a pervasive problem in our society. It's an epidemic, but it's preventable. And if we all work together, we can change it. If we're all willing to sit down and have conversations about it. So for the men, I'm inviting you. I'm not indicting you. I'm inviting you to sit at the table with me and other women and groups and organizations to end this. If you're the 90%, I would ask you to identify yourself and let other people know. Let the women know on this campus that they're safe. Let the perpetrators know that they're not welcome. Have conversations with each other. That's really my only goal, and that's why I share my story over and over and over in hopes that we will come together and change this. Because I don't think anyone should have to go through what I went through. Because it's not just about me, it's about my children too. It's about my family. It's about your families. And no one deserves to go through what I went through. It's not okay. We're almost out of time because it's a short session. But I want to thank you for coming to my session today. I know sometimes people see it and they're like, oh, a rape survivor, like, I don't want to come to that. But thank you for being here. I appreciate all of you are here. If you are a survivor in the room, you don't have to identify yourself, but I just want to tell you that it's not your fault. It is not your fault. You did nothing wrong. There's never anything that you could do to cause another person to choose to violate your body. So if you are carrying any shame or blame, please stop. It is not your fault. We have to change the victim blaming in this society. And I'll tell you actually an exercise before I stop talking, we open for a question and answer. There's a exercise I do with myself because I still have problems with blaming myself, right? I went to the apartment, I drank, I eat this, that, whatever. If you are blaming yourself and you're a survivor, or you are a person who's victim blaming someone else, right? We're saying, well, what did she think was going to happen? She went to this party and there's a bunch of guys there, she drank. Do this. Should rape be a consequence of, and fill in the blank? Do that exercise. So if we're saying to someone, well, she was at the party, she was drinking, should rape be a consequence of drinking? Well, she got separated from her friends and we told her not to go over there because those guys are bad. Should rape be a consequence of going somewhere and making a mistake or not listening to your friends? No. No. We have to start changing the way that we're thinking about this. And victim blaming is an easy thing to do, right? Because if I can blame the victim, then I don't have to hold the perpetrator accountable. I don't have to think about maybe the guy that I thought I knew from childhood and is my friend and I think is a good guy, that it's possible that maybe he was in a room with a woman and he could have raped her. I don't have to deal with that if I can blame her. Right? We can just go on about our lives if we can blame the victim. Then I don't have to do anything. I don't have to hold anybody accountable. I don't have to make hard decisions. It's easier just to blame the victim. But these are things we have to start talking about and we have to start thinking about if we're going to change the culture.